Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our session, Removing the Stabilisers, Community Approaches that Promote Walking and Cycling for All. So, I'm Tim Copley. I'm the Director of Insight, Technology and Data here at London Sport, and my job really this morning is simply to facilitate a session. So, by way of teeing it up really, and perhaps at the risk of stating the obvious, we cycle and walk for a range of different reasons, for simple enjoyment, to stay active, as a means of socializing, for environmental reasons. But of course, there's a functional element to it too. We use it from get to A to B. Cycling and walking are two of the most popular ways of getting around London. And as I'm sure we'll come on to, the Mayor's transport strategy has bold plans to increase levels of active travel. And nationally, the Prime Minister's vision for cycling and walking gear change outlines something broadly similar. But if we're to collectively support the Mayor's strategy and its goals to be realised, how do we support Londoners who are not regularly cycling and walking? And how do we unpick the issues that make access to participation in walking and cycling harder for some groups? And how do we go about solving some of these issues? So I'm pleased to say that over the next hour, we'll hear from 4 initiatives who can shine a light on this topic and begin to answer some of these questions from their own experience. But first, I'm pleased to say that we're joined by Will Norman, the Mayor's Walking and Cycling Commissioner, to provide some broader context to this topic. So, Will, over to you.
Thanks, Tim. I've got a few slides, so if we could share those, that would be great. But as you said, Tim, that we're all here because we believe in the power of sport and we believe in the importance of physical activity in our everyday lives. And we know that the key thing to increasing physical activity and giving everybody the benefits in health, in well-being, in the environment, and social capital, we know that the most important thing is how do we design that activity back into everyday life? There's a really important role that sport plays in that, but actually for many more people, and for those people who maybe aren't as active and not engaged in sport, active travel is a really important part of that picture, and that's what we're here today. Can I have the next slide, please? It's been a challenging 18 months for everybody. It's been grim, to be honest. Thousands of Londoners have suffered illness, loss, grief, stress, isolation, economic hardships and worries, and the horrors of homeschooling and all of these challenges. And it's, as is so often the case, the sort of experience of COVID over the last years has shown a light on inequalities within the city. As the inequalities around health have really defined our journey through COVID, both in terms of those people, poorer minority groups, have suffered the most. These inequalities existed before COVID, but in many ways this just accentuated those divides. Can I have the next slide, please? Some of the same is true with all the key challenges that London is facing. We have the most inactive we have the most inactive kids in the country. That isn't a picture of one of my kids during lockdown, but it could have been at times. The prevalence of screens and sitting on the sofa watching TV, which leads to inactivity, leads to chronic disease, air pollution. With more cars and more congestion, we're finding that air pollution, it kills leads to over 4,000 premature deaths a year within London. And again, that disproportionately affects certain communities. The impacts of climate change are increasingly becoming stark around the world. These are fires in Australia, but we're increasingly seeing flooding on the streets of London. Again, those impacts of climate change are disproportionately affecting certain communities. And they're the economic challenges associated with coming out of COVID, again, disproportionately affecting certain different communities across London. We've got no choice but to respond to these challenges. These challenges are an existential threat to not only the city, but for climate change, for all of humanity, I suppose. We can't carry on the path we've got. Continuing to have more cars on London's roads is not possible. Continuing to have the chronic disease burden, the heart disease, the diabetes, the challenges associated with that is unaffordable for the NHS. We have to tackle this, and we have to tackle it now. And how we enable more people, enable everybody to have the benefits of active travel is in terms of the health, the well-being, as I said, cleaner air, community cohesion, economic benefits is absolutely essential to our plans. The next slide, please. So as Tim said, and the heart of the Mayor's transport strategy is our plan for healthy streets. How do we make our streets safer, more pleasant places for people, to enable a shift from car journeys to active travel and public transport? The Mayor's set a target to shift from 63% of journeys being walked, cycled, and public transport to 80%, which is a really big change. So that involves many more people switching out of the cars for those local journeys. Every day, a third of all car journeys in London are less than 2 kilometres. How many of those could be walked, cycled in those local communities? 250,000 car journeys every morning are just the school run. How many of those could be walked and cycled? So that, in many ways, is what I want to talk about today. Now, key to this shift is transforming our roads. Next slide, please. From busy main roads like this one on Embankment, next slide, please, to the cycle lanes that we've put in. That's now the busiest cycle lane in the country. It's not just about the main roads. If we go to the next street, you have an awful lot of smaller back streets. Next slides, please. Smaller back streets like these, which end up being sort of rat runs and congested, and filtering those. And next slide, please, leads to, again, that safer network for people walking and cycling. We now have over 400 kilometres of a cycle network spanning London. You can actually cycle almost from one side of London to the other. But we know that's not the goal. It's these local communities and local journeys which will make the biggest change, and enabling that to happen to everybody. It's not just the cycle routes. It's also about transforming dangerous junctions so people feel safe and confident to cross the roads and be able to walk around their local community. So next slide, please. This is Archway. It used to be a 4-lane motorway through the centre of the community. If you go to the next slide, it's now got safe crossings. It's got a new public space, and it's got a cycle route through it. If you go to the next slide, even before the work was finished, the community started using this public space. They used a church service here before the work was even finished, what used to be that 4-lane road. And next slide, please. During COVID, we accelerated our changes to make it safer for people to walk and cycle, so that enabling more people, when there was less space and people were worried about getting on the tube, the last thing we need is a return to cars. If everybody comes off public transport and shifts to the cars, we're going to have even more of a crisis. And so we accelerated that, delivering over 100 kilometres of cycle routes, temporary cycle routes, like this one on Park Lane. The next slide, please. Delivering over 100 low traffic neighbourhoods across the city, which have been they've been a mixed response to some of those, but the outcomes shows that we've seen a really significant rise in walking, cycling, as well as a 50% fall in collisions on those local roads. The next slide, please. And we've seen 350 school streets, which are cutting air pollution, increasing active travel for those journeys to school. Which is, we know that if kids are active early on in life, they're far more likely to be active for the rest of their lives. So instilling that behaviour early is so important. The next slide, please. So building that network is absolutely essential. And we know, and the evidence shows, that where you build safer road, you make the road safer, where you've got cycling provision for cyclists, quieter roads, you see more people walking, you see more people cycling. But sadly, historically, there's been a lot of focus on central London. And therefore, the change that we've been seeing more recently is moving out into inner London and bringing in more communities so that more people get these benefits. So if you build the infrastructure in the communities which need it most, we'll get the change that we need to have. So reaching more communities is absolutely essential. Next slide, please. And for me, this cartoon, while slightly cheeky, sums it up. Essentially, for those people, it's essentially saying that if you've got this sort of dangerous infrastructure, if you've got a bit of string, a bit of rope going across a gorge, a very, very few people will do that. It will be the few. Whereas if you make a safe infrastructure across the road, then far more people will do it. It comes back to an adage that I use a lot when I talk about this, that is demonstrated time and time again. If you build it, if you make the road safer, people will use them in different ways. People will cycle. But the challenge is then not everybody does. So from the strategy that we have is make the road safer. That's the underlying fundamental piece that would need to happen because we know the biggest barrier for all groups to start cycling is actually fears around safety. So we need to make those those roads safer. And then once there's a safe network, then it's about activating those communities, engaging proactively, working with people and encouraging more people to think about this behavior change piece that sits on top of it. Next slide, please. Which is why we provide bike training in the boroughs, and we now have an online cycle training course. So if people want to try cycling, they do the bike training, and we know that the evidence shows that once people do the cycle training, then people stick with it and carry on cycling, changing their behaviour. Next slide, please. But it's also about community organizations. This can't be a top-down approach. This has to come through the communities themselves, which is why we have a program of walking and cycling grants as with other funders across the city on how we enable groups and communities who've got those ideas, who are close to those communities, who are in those communities, can provide support and encouragement for people to make the shift, think about switching car journeys to more active travel, helping their health and helping the city. Next slide, please. That's not just cycling. It's also about walking, and people of all abilities, all ages, all genders, and all and all ethnicities. It's fantastic to see so many great community groups here. I know we've funded some of them. I know some of them I've met before, doing really good work in the communities. But I want to reiterate the plan that we know that works is if you make the streets safer, people can come and use them and people can walk and cycle more. But you need to do more than just do the safe streets. You then need to work with communities, engage those communities, use the skills, the talents, the capacity, the knowledge, and all the passion that exists within the diverse group of London's communities to then allow everybody to access the infrastructure that we're building so that everybody gets the benefits of being more healthier and having cheaper, easier, freer, cleaner, more sustainable travel. So thank you very much. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from the community groups themselves, who are the real heroes here, who are activating people and engaging people to get involved. Tim, are we passing back to you?
Yeah, thank you, Will. So lots going on in terms of infrastructure, but as you say, those community groups are absolutely vital to the changes we want to make. And I'm pleased to say that we're joined by 4 different community initiatives. And first, I want to introduce you to Temi from My Choice, who's going to take you through his experience. So Temi, over to you.
Hi, thanks, Tim. Good morning, and good morning to everyone. I hope you can all hear me. So my name is Temi Lateef. I am the founder of an organization called My Choice. And in 2018, we set out and created a cycling group, which goes by the name of Black Riders Association. I'll give you a quick rundown of how all of this came about and essentially what we are currently doing, and any questions you can ask later on. So in 2018, I bought my first bike. I've always been a cyclist. I grew up in East London. As a kid, I do have memories of riding around with friends, as I'm sure most of us do. And for myself, it got to a certain age where bikes no longer became a means of transportation for a number of reasons. And that was it for me until, I guess, a good 10 to 20 years, which I'm sure a lot of people can also, understand in some situations. So in my later years, I only used a bike to commute to and from work, which was literally 10 minutes up the road and 10 minutes back. I was using a Santander bike. To me, I thought that was a good enough bit of exercise. During the week, Saturdays and Sundays, no bikes for me. And that was fine. I was happy with that as I am active in other sports. So that was enough cycling for me. But I was somehow roped into a charity bike ride, which took place in 2019, which saw me cycling from London to Nigeria, Africa. So during that process, I reached out to a lot of organizations, and I was trying to, in a way, get them to highlight, number one, there's a group of guys aiming to cycle from London to Lagos. And number two, during the training process of this, for myself, I had a lot of questions that I felt a bit shy, if I'm being honest, to ask people that didn't look like me, or
recording in progress,
or I didn't know how I could, just fit into certain cycling routes, because I don't know if
Recording stopped.
experience, but in some areas where cycling is very well, a lot of people cycle. It's kind of intimidating if you don't have the right kit, if you don't have a nice bike, if you don't have, the latest gadgets. Some people, they shy away. They don't really have the time of day for you. And I didn't want other people to experience that if I was to create a cycling group. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to start my own little group. I am trying to get a lot of my friends in the area to join me to see what I was experiencing when going through my training process. And that allowed me to explore London and see a lot of its beauty, from cycling in Victoria Park, Walthamstow, to venturing all the way to Southend, Hastings, Maidstone, and the adventure along the way and the time I had to myself. It benefited me a lot, and I was able to, in some ways, use my cycling times to reflect and clear my mind. So I found cycling to be very good for anyone going through any kind of stresses or needing some downtime to just think, reflect, and come up with new ways how they're going to tackle whatever issues they may be going through. Although we cycle in groups, you're doing that journey by yourself. So although you are in a group and people are motivating you and pushing you to carry on and get to the finish line, majority of that is on you and it's on your legs, and you have to kind of put the action in and dig deep and get to the finish line, hills or no hills, as a lot of us have over the journey found out. Sometimes the hills do get the best of us, but we push and we go again. So 2019, I embarked on my trip, and I got back in 2020, and I just put the word back out that I'm back. And that was also the time COVID hit. So a lot of gyms were closed. A lot of people were, like everyone, going through a lot of stressful times. These were times no one has ever really experienced. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to be cycling every Sunday. It's an opportunity for me to meet all the people who supported me along my trip when I went. And a lot of people showed interest in cycling. So I basically said, we'll set out every Sunday. We'll start small. We'll start in the area, see what's in the area, what's local, and each week we'll add 5 miles and we'll explore and venture out bit by bit. So we started essentially in East London, which I'm based in, and each week we just found a new location, asked people where they would like to go, and gradually built people up to a point where we said, all right, we normally do an annual ride to Southend in August. This was early March, so we said to everyone, at everyone's leisure and pace, we'll meet every Sunday and we'll get everyone ready to essentially be able to complete a cycle from London to Southend. Our annual trip to Southend, which we did with the first group when we started back in 2020, we managed to take 35 cyclists all the way from London to Southend, many of which had never cycled before, some of which had just bought their bikes specifically to get in shape for that. But it was the opportunity to be part of a group, to be part of people that look like them, to be part of people who had similar interests and similar values. And all I wanted to do in creating my group was show people that cycling is for everybody. You don't have to be a professional. You don't have to wear Lycra. You don't have to wear cleats. You can use any bike as a means of transportation. Your bike doesn't have to cost a ridiculous amount of money, as long as your tires are pumped, your brakes work, and the lights are okay, and you wear a helmet for safety reasons. We can go, and in that we managed to create an amazing hub of people who, we've managed to find people jobs. We've managed to connect people with other people who are now doing centuries like nothing. People are exploring bits of London that they didn't even know existed, parts of England that they didn't know existed. They're now using a bike to get there. Over the course of the last 2 years, we've been fortunate enough to engage with over, I would say, 1,000 people, actively getting young people, adults, women, and men cycling. With our rides and our group, we provide a free meal to everybody who participates in the ride as a way to get people together, because the main ethos of what we wanted to create was a community where people felt that they belonged. If there were any questions or things they wanted to ask people, they had a safe space to engage in these areas. And off the back of that, so many other people have been inspired to create their own groups, and they are now cycling and training other people. We've managed to get people cycle leader-led training, and just the impact cycling has had within our community has been tremendous, and it's something that we would love to continue to see grow within our community. This year alone and last year, 2 significant events took place, one of which was the Black Uni Bike Ride, which saw, I believe, like 1,500 people turn out within the space of 10 days. Now, for people to say people of color or men or women of color don't cycle, you can go online, you can check that event, and that should be all the proof you need to show that if you do create these areas and these communities and these infrastructures, people will come. It's just, for me personally, and the main reason why I created this group is because when I sometimes go online, I don't see people that look like me, whether that is a male person of color or a female person of color, represented in sometimes the right ways to showcase to the younger generation that all of these things are possible. And if other people don't want to do it, then do it yourself. And as people have said, as long as you provide the opportunity and the space, people will come, which we have done. And there are so many groups I can mention. There's a group called Girls Ride Out 2. There's a group called TWR. There's a group called Lime More Ladies. So many other groups I could mention, but these are all significant groups that have been created, whether during the pandemic or after the pandemic, in our communities, showcasing to people that just using a bike to travel from A to B within the community, these are all the things you can accomplish. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your fitness. The laughter, the banter, the knowledge you can get from people is a diverse range of age groups of people that are coming together. So each one teaches one, and it's just a magnificent opportunity for people to get involved in. And things like these, I champion and I welcome, because it gives us the opportunity to see what other people are doing in the community. It gives us an opportunity to connect with people who are willing to help, not just talk about helping, but actually want to help to see a change in the community. Especially for me, being from East London, certain parts of East London are very underprivileged in terms of sport and development. And I believe if communities can come together and showcase the opportunities and things that people could do, it could be a stepping stone, or it could be the stepping stone, not only for young people, but for adults as well, to try new things and venture into new things in their life. I think my time is coming to an end, so I just want to say thank you for the time this morning, and I'm excited to hear what everyone else has to say. Thank you for the time.
Hello, everyone. My name is Razia, and I am working currently as a cycle instructor for London Borough of Hillingdon. And I've been doing that for nearly over 8 years now. And our main aim is to do bikeability. So I'm a qualified instructor, and we teach Year 6 children how to cycle safely on the roads. And there are various other things that we offer through the council. So I was asked by my manager that one of the residents in Hayes had contacted them and see if we could help them raise awareness for cycling in Hayes for women in Hayes. And that's how I got involved. Initially, just a year before COVID happened, and we were just establishing the club, and then COVID happened. Everything sort of went quiet. And then Anis, who's the founder of this club, contacted me back in end of March this year and asked me if I could help out with the club again. So we sat down and we started from the beginning again, and hence then we created Legacy, and it's for women in Hayes who wants to come and learn how to cycle. So it's we offer it to anyone who wants to come from the age of 18 onwards. It's offered to ethnic minority women who wanted to do something different rather than just go home after doing school runs and do some housework. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with doing housework, but they wanted to sort of break away from that. Some of the women that we teach never got the opportunity to learn how to ride when they were children through, probably male-dominated households saying, women don't cycle, it's only for men. So now they get the opportunity to do that. So what we do is we do the cycling in a park where we have permission from Green Spaces, and women come there, and we offer them sort of weekly basis sessions, and it's an hour and 15 minutes. We have created a WhatsApp group, and we invite all the women through that. And so the sessions will involve teaching them how to balance a bike, and once they move and we can see that their balance is very good, they move on to paddling, and that's how they would pick up and learn how to ride. And when they start riding initially, and the joy on their faces is just enormous, and it's such an achievement for myself to see that if you cycle, if you know how to cycle, it just, you think, you get on your bike, you pedal and you go. But for someone who's never done it, and it's just a big achievement, and the smiles on their faces is what really, really inspires me to keep doing this week on, and it just gives me that momentum to keep going. So we have just started, and it's getting quite popular, which means is when we offer the lessons, and if it's either 6 or 8 ladies we can teach at one time, and it fills up very quickly. Within minutes, the spaces are taken. And I wish we had more people who could teach them. So the aim is they, because of ethnic minority, and some of them are Muslim women, and they only want female instructors because of whatever reasons they may have. So we have currently our founder, Anis, myself, and 2 other coaches. So it's 4 of us doing it while juggling family lives, and I work. And we try to offer them sessions at least twice a week or at the weekend. We also have started doing some rides. We have 3 levels on our rides, which is, one is a small ride, which is about just under 6 to 10 miles. Then we move on to the medium ride, which is about, it can be up to 20 miles. And then the long ride could be about 30 to 35 miles. And so we invite the women who do know how to cycle, just want to come and socialize, and at the same time ride and just meet other people and be fit at the same time. So we, again, as soon as we put the list up, and that becomes filled up very quickly, it becomes really popular. And we have done sometimes we do a very small ride just from one park to the other. And again, some of the women are so thrilled because they've never done it before, and going on the road and, on and off road riding. And when they're on the road, some of them are a bit, sometimes scared, but I say to them, look, I am qualified, and we do this day in and out with children as young as 10. And so that gives them a bit of, they feel that, yes, I can do it. So we are trying to, because we're expanding very quickly, we're trying to get some volunteers who are our regular riders and see if they can help us, and we can help them develop the skills of how to teach other people how to cycle, and maybe one day they want to go ahead and become coaches themselves. And our future plans are that we want to teach children, get children involved, maybe do rides with the mums and the children. They can come at the weekend or during the school holidays. We can do rides with them. And that gives the opportunity for women not to sit at home during the school holidays, because their biggest concern sometimes becomes is who's going to look after the children while they are off school. So that's our aim for probably next year. And we are trying to approach women who are still not sure they want to do cycling, again, through family pressure at home or the community itself, the community they come from. And we try to go to local mosques, and some women, we've approached Women Association in Hayes to see if they can get elderly women to come and join our sessions as well. Because some women who have come, they said, I'm too old to ride. And I always encourage them and say, you're never too old to ride. I once taught an 80-year-old how to ride, and she had never ridden before. It was hard to begin with, but she did it in the end. So that was really good achievement for her. The feedback we get from riders, for instance, we had one lady who was really keen, and it took her a while to get the balance and get pedaling. And yesterday she actually rode, and that was really, really good achievement for her. We call her the flying woman, because initially when she sat on the bike, she said, the feeling is as if I'm flying in the air. And so we just call her the flying woman because she's able to ride now. And unfortunately, I wasn't there yesterday as I was at work, but my other coaches sent me a message saying, she's finally riding now, and she was over the moon. And so, again, as I said, we want to encourage more women to do this. And, things like for Muslim women, some of them they said, we wear a hijab, or we wear a jilbab, which is a long dress. And so we are trying to work together how we can encourage them to cycle in an environment where there's, it's sort of men free. So that's where we are at the moment. We're trying to come up with ideas to help the women who have that concern at the moment. So the three coaches, Anis, our founder, and two other ladies, they have just achieved their coaching level 1 training, and they are currently going to start their level 2 training, which means it helps me out in the way that if I'm at work, they can carry on with some of the lessons and rides as well. So can I just go through the slide quickly? As you can see, that's my logo, and that's Anis on her own on the bike. As you can see, she looks very happy. And that's me. We wrecked a ride the other day, and then the other two coaches, Sana and Donna at the back, and Anis right at the back. Okay. And next one, please. If you could just go, this is where we store our bikes. This is Barra Hall Park, and we were just about to go on a ride. And if you could just go through the slides, that will be fine. I know I'm running out of time. As you can see, it's becoming quite popular. This is what we started with just before COVID. And if you carry on, and I just wanted to discuss, as you can see, that's our training site. And we have some of the riders don't want to be have their faces on social media. And this group, can I just quickly say about this group? These are ladies who are the victims of modern slavery, and they were sent through a trust called Medale Trust. It's MEDAILLE, and really, really happy ladies there, and they are so happy that they're able to do something after what they've been through. So that's me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Razia. Thank you for everything you talked about there. I'm going to briefly pass you over now to Nadjie, who is from Redbridge Active and Social Community Project. So Nadjie.
Hi. Just having trouble unmuting it. Hello, everyone. I'm going to be talking very briefly about a project that I've just finished in Redbridge. It's called the Redbridge Active and Social Community Group. It is actually a cycling and a walking project, but primarily I'm going to be talking about the walking today. Next slide, please. Okay, so just a few slides to run through. I can only just about read the slides on the screen. I'm going to have to come a little bit closer. Luckily I know this off by heart. I can just talk through it. So it was a 12-week project funded by the Greater London Authority. It was primarily there to get people active, but also to reduce loneliness and isolation by bringing people together from different communities and hopefully to form friendships. As I mentioned, I run cycling as well, but in actual fact, the walking was more popular. And one of the reasons for that was it enabled the ability for people to be more social and to speak and to make friends. And that was a really important part of what people wanted to get out of that project, was to meet people in their local area from different religions, different backgrounds, different communities, and just make some new friends and socialise with them. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm hoping that we can run a video. You're going to have to listen quite carefully because there was a bit of a problem with the sound, but this is what a few of my walkers have said about the project.
Okay, so I'm here today with some of the walking group members from the Redbridge Active and Social Community Group, and they're just going to talk a little bit about what being part of this walking group has meant to them.
There are so many nice places around Redbridge, and although I've always liked walking, with this project I've been able to see beautiful places like this that I didn't even know existed. And it's just really lovely to come out walking with a nice group of people.
Second that. I think for all of us, I think we find that it's become part of our nature now to just come out and meet everybody regularly. Certainly for me, the cycling and the walking's helped, and it's encouraging. I think our leader has encouraged us to meet other people and be out more often than I would have been through lockdown. So I do appreciate that, definitely.
I think for me it's the positiveness and meeting new people, and also the confidence in you, because I'm actually going to do Ben Nevis next week, and I wouldn't have done that if I didn't join this. So thanks to Nadjie, to be honest.
I think it's been an easy commitment right from the very start. Met like-minded people, but we're all from very different walks of life, and everybody's got on. As the girls have said, we've really looked forward to coming to the sessions, the walking sessions. Yeah. And on top of that, we've really enjoyed and been introduced to new places in our locale. It's been absolutely brilliant.
Beautiful.
Since I was diagnosed with MS, and I joined the walking and cycling groups, it has helped me enormously. Everybody has been so helpful and so encouraging, especially Nadjie. Thank you.
Hi, it's been really therapeutic, especially for my well-being and my mental health. just to have the confidence to come out and be in a group, to have lovely Nadjie, who's so supportive and kind to us all, and just to meet really nice people and just to feel that we're all in it together.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to leave that up for a second. And this is some of the comments that have been made by people that have attended the sessions. This is just using Padlet, so hopefully you can focus on and maybe just read a couple. But there's a real big theme throughout this, and that is that if you can read those comments, you'll see that most of the attendees are talking about the importance that is given to them for socialisation and improved mental health. And I know earlier on Temi was mentioned about going and seeing people, like-minded people and people of colour. And in a second, you'll see the sort of the stats of the different racial mix we had. But we really did have a good representation across all of the community. In fact, one of our ladies that comes from a tiny island called St Vincent actually met somebody else on the walk-in who turned out to be her cousin. How's that for connecting people? So the real thing about the walk-in here was that people were able to make friends. They were able to talk about some of the challenges they had in lockdown. Some of our walkers had minor disabilities, and we were able to accommodate them. And as you can see from the comments now, it really was beneficial to people that came along. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's some of the stats. So just recently finished the project and produced the end of project report. So I've got the details available, and it really was 100% tick across all of the boxes. I was really quite overwhelmed actually by how beneficial the project was to everybody that came along, and that to me exceeded all of my expectations. I've set up a Nextdoor group on the Nextdoor app. We're just about pushing up to 250 members. So really wanted to make sure that going forward, people kept walking and kept connecting. So that the group is a facilitator for that. I am actually continuing to do a volunteer walk a week myself to keep the group going. So on to the next slide, please. So just trying to catch up here, I think this is my last slide. So really, why was it successful? Well, it wasn't really rocket science. It was about giving people a great experience. And by that, I was able to do that by finding out what they wanted before they came along. So I did just use Google Forms, sent out a little form to people, found out a bit about them, what they wanted, what their mental health state was like, and what they wanted to get at the project. And I basically gave it to them. So I did varied walks, interesting walks, different locations, different challenges. I found out a lot about the local history of where we were walking and nature conservation, and I tried to make the walks really interesting. But to be honest, after the first few weeks, people were just meeting up with their friends and having a good old chat. And that was, the greatest outcome of all, really. I absolutely loved this project. It was a real pleasure to meet so many people from so many different communities and just be the facilitator of creating something special for them. I think I'm just about at the end. I think it's a question slide next, but I think that's about it. Can we just see the next slide? Yeah. So that's me. If you've got any questions, hopefully we'll have some time at the end, but thanks for listening.
Nadjie, many thanks for that. You make it sound really simple, and I'm sure we can learn a lot from your approaches. Great. So we're going to move on to Rajinder and Jaspal from Let's Go Southall, and they're going to talk us through their experiences. Over to you guys.
Hello everyone, we're really thrilled to be here with Active London and want to thank you for the opportunity. I'm really excited to share the work that's going on through our Let's Ride Southall programme. My name's Jaspal Gill and this is my colleague Rajinder Singh. Hopefully you'll have a chance to speak to Rajinder in Q&A. And we're the Sport England delivery pilot leads for a programme called Let's Go Southall. For those of you that may not be aware of Southall, we are a West London suburban district and one of the large towns in the London Borough of Ealing, about 10 miles west of Charing Cross, but have our own commercial centre here, really based on a strong cultural identity, cultural merchandise, food and drink. About 70,000 residents, which our early insights tell us about half of them are inactive. Next slide, please. Oh, the slide's not there.
Yeah, I think if we could start a slide presentation, that'd be brilliant. Otherwise, we can try to carry on.
Sorry for that interruption. We're just waiting for the slide presentation. Okay, I think I'll carry on. So with those high levels of inactivity and some of these social issues that we know our residents are facing, how are we going to tackle to be greener, to be healthier, and to think about a sense of social justice if we are working with some of the health inequalities that people face? So we've used a social movement approach. And through that social movement approach, what's really key is the way that our community has been developed to be community organisers, community leaders, and leading through their talents, their skills to create leadership and others to follow. So we have started to create a shift from public local authority bodies, from a 4-person team, to work with a team of 60 community organisers, community leaders now, from a space of 3 campaigns, engaging with almost 1,000 residents each campaign phase through 12-week programmes. And the success that we're seeing, there was a visual around a timetable. It's no ordinary timetable that you'd see in your local gym. These are timetables that are based around indoor spaces, online spaces, and outdoor, with walking and cycling. And what's really key in that is that these are local faces on these timetables, and we're very proud of that success, and so are the leaders that are using their community skills. So we've had to build community capacity and around cycling. That's no small feat. We've heard earlier about the fears around cycling, and often we're here, oh no, I can't get on a bike, I can't ride in this street. So we've worked with our partners, British Cycling, and developed a ride leaders. So predominantly a lot of our cycling starting using open space in our local parks have now seen some of our women and elderly men over 70 plus moving out in the comfort of a lead ride onto busy Southall streets. And trust me, if you can cycle in Southall, you can cycle anywhere. It's traffic everywhere, and the drivers, well, we've really got there with that community model of leaders taking action to be inclusive. I'm just going to check we've not got the slides.
We haven't actually got the slides presenting, so we're just using our parallel PC.
So I'm missing a few imagery now, so I'll do my best to bring to life.
We've got it now on there. Okay, so you want to go forward a bit?
Next slide, please. So I've just talked about how we're building community leadership and moving from local spaces. And a large part of our strategy is working with the Sport England, Uniting the Movement, which is about bringing different people together, men, women, children, and creating through our leaders, through our local community organisers, cycle initiatives, be it we're encouraging people to cycle to work day, be it they're developing their own local pedal challenges to create a sense of social action and pedalling for good. Next slide, please. Our system focus, which really deep roots into having a broad base of partners and stakeholders, is really key to creating that sustainable cycling. And what we have here in this image is one of our local residents working with us to receive a delivery from the local council street services of recovered bikes. Next slide, please. To build a new centre for distribution and workshops where we'll continue that capacity building, training local people around cycling mechanics. And that's a local Gurdwara. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the Gurdwara, it's a Sikh temple, and one of our initiatives, creating cycle hubs, taking it to new spaces, new faith centres. Next slide, please. And one of the transformational things that we've really done is to take a council calendar event Dr. Bike, free maintenance of bikes, and really made it community-led, really inclusive. And in the corner there, you can see our resident leaders there in their wheelchairs, modelling, taking selfies. So we're really with it, taking those selfies. We're really moving with the times, but we're really moving with that inclusive, showing that pedalling can be for all. Next slide, please. So using social movement, we're bringing different communities together. We have Sukh there from our men active team with his turban, meeting on our Dr. Bike events, which is monthly, with young Somali men putting up a tent on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. You're not going to get that without the power and the commitment and the skills that local people can bring to want change in their area. And again, Interpal that's leading our Active for All team, working with people with physical disability or long-term health conditions, engaging in those intense conversations around physical activity and cycling. And once upon a time, this cycle diary event would have happened the equivalent of Christmas Day for people in Southall. It was once held on Diwali. And that's like coming out to get your bike repaired on Christmas Day. It's not really going to happen. And what the change has been is they've made it into their own festival. And this is what you call people bringing their talents, their skills, their know-how on knowing how to bring others along and leading the way. So we almost have a community festival, and you can see there in the bottom imagery, the door, the costumes, the dancing, the singing. It's their own event that they put their special touch on. Next slide, please. Another faction on spaces that we're creating, a community cafe would be one of our other hubs. Next slide, please. And this image is really, really, sorry, next slide, please. So this image is really special to me. So whilst we're working with national partners like British Cycling and that grassroots, bringing people outside of their cultural identity to collaborate and work on issues that are locally based is really, really important for that sustainable, positive change. For me personally, that's me on the bike, by the way, on the right. And that's my Gurdwara car park. So changing the face of, that's probably somewhere I wouldn't have cycled being an Asian woman from my local community. And that's some of the change that we're seeing in addressing some of those cultural barriers and taking cycling to new settings, new communities. Next slide, please. So powered by social movement, what does that mean? That's powered by the people to create the change. It's using their resources. How can you put a price on what people's skills and knowledge is? It's not 20k a year, it's not 50k a year, but those informal actions can be really difficult to measure. And how do we measure the impact of our identities to create the change that we're looking for? And what's really key is often community, when you're developing a model, it's not what's going to end up, it's the how. Next slide, please. So in that, the process is really, really important. So our community organising model, which is about our active communities teams, is really all about the way we've organised, the way in which we work to create that new leadership, to bring people along and get them to see that citizens have that expertise, they have those skills, and it's their networks, their life experiences that create that shared measurable action that we're looking for. I think I'm going to have to wrap it up there. I may be out of time.
I just want to say one thing as one point. One of the reasons why the people were dancing in that previous slide was that we are giving away 2,500 bikes in a 70,000 population area. So if you get a brand new rally bike from the council to help you cycle, you will be dancing. So we are going to we have game-changing actions in Southall. And it's really important to share some of that, how big this project is and the supporting and backing. So we're hoping to make these fundamental changes in the structure in West London, in Southall, and that should hopefully then expand outwards to neighbouring boroughs in Razia and other areas. So just want to share that. That's probably one of the reasons why they're really happy, because that is the plan. And hopefully in a year's time, we'll come back and report on that. So I'll stop there, Tim. Back over to you.
Thank you, Rajinder and Jaspal. Some amazing stuff going on over there in Southall. We are running slightly over, but if you don't mind staying on for a little bit, we've got a bit of time to ask some questions, and I will fire straight into them whilst we've got these guys online. So my first question is to Temi. Do you feel it was necessary to form a collective specifically targeting the Black community? And do you feel that established cycling bodies have done enough to include Black communities in cycling?
The answer to the first question, I would say yes and no. The only reason why I started our collective was to showcase to people that look like me that this is possible. Once that was done, and once people have the confidence to cycle, to take themselves out of their comfort zone and venture into places like the Velodrome, Herne Hill, Regent's Park and stuff like that, it's all game for everybody. It's just having the base or the stepping stone to feel I can do this, to see people that look like me, to showcase, okay, it's not impossible to do, and just to have somewhere to call home for yourself if you did have questions or wanted to connect with people who come from a background or from similar interests to you. So that was the only reason why this collective was formed, and why I feel it is important, because the cycling world is very heavily dominated by, from my looking in, white middle-aged men. So it was important for a comfortable space for both men and women to be able to say at least they have a space they can go to cycle without any issues, worries or stresses, or any questions they have, they can ask them without any judgment. In regards to cycling bodies, my own experiences, some have done tremendously well in helping the movement and making it known that they do want to help establish and help more collectives. Some haven't. That's the honest truth, without name dropping any organisations.
Great, thanks, Temi. Next question that's come up is, I'm going to direct this one to Will, and perhaps I'll jump in afterwards. So there is a need for research to be conducted specifically with Black and culturally diverse communities on active travel, both for cycling and walking. What role does London Sport take in making this happen? So perhaps I'll take that bit, but Will, do you have a view on this sort of research side?
Yes, I do. I think this is really important. We have been doing some research on exactly this, recognizing that this is a problem. And the point that I made earlier is that you need to build the safe infrastructure within communities, but then you also need to understand what are the barriers to getting people, enabling more people to cycle, particularly from more diverse groups. We know that 79% of disabled people don't currently cycle, 73% of women don't currently cycle, 77% of people on low incomes don't cycle. We know that 79% of people from ethnic minorities don't cycle. So it means that, this doesn't reflect the London that we know and we love. And that's why all the work that these community groups are doing is so important. However, there is there's some hope. We've got some new research that will be coming out soon. And that shows that there isn't actually, white Londoners are not significantly more likely to have cycled than ethnic minorities, and that actually there's a greater openness for people from minority ethnic backgrounds and low income groups to start cycling. So there's a huge opportunity here, and you're right, we do need more research into this, but it's not just a matter of research, it's action. It's about building that infrastructure and asking councils to build that infrastructure in communities, but it's also about supporting groups like the great people we've heard from today and making sure they've got the resources to carry on doing the work that they do to enable communities to start walking, as in Nadjie's example, or the cycling examples that we've heard as well. And we know what a benefit that brings to people. So yes, we need more research, but it's not just about the research, it's about the action too.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree with that. We've at London Sport done and do work to understand the barriers, cultural barriers, investigating, working with ethnically diverse communities. Some work around East London Women and Girls springs to mind that we've just completed, but we haven't actually done anything around active travel specifically. And it might be worth saying now that London Sport is going to start investigating about how we can work within the realms of active travel more. There's a lot of fantastic work going on, as we've heard this morning. So we're working out how we can add value to the picture to really help Londoners walk and cycle more. And perhaps the research side is something that we can collaborate on with partners. So next question, it's targeted at Razia. So what common concerns do the women that you cycle with have before they join your sessions?
The first concern they always ask is if the instructor or the coach is a woman themselves. And so obviously we've overcome that by having four coaches at the moment. The other one is timing is a big thing for them. They want lessons during the week in school hours, so they don't have to worry about childcare, and obviously that's our main aim. That's why we try to offer lessons on a Tuesday, Wednesday and a Friday. Just before, we sometimes do double sessions, which is, starts at 10 and another one starts at 11:30. So we're sort of done and dusted by 12:15. So if they have to go home and do any chores before school runs, they still have time to do that. And the third one, which, I always assure them is, will I be able to cycle by the end of the session? And believe you me, sometimes within 20 minutes, some of the women are cycling. So those are the main common ones that we've come across most of the time.
Great. Fantastic. I'm going to put this next question to Rajinder and Jazz. How are you normalising cycling and making a shift towards cycling being a viable alternative to other forms of transport?
Brilliant question. So we are starting from near zero in Southall. So we need to get to people to start to even orbit and think about cycling. So we talk about safety, and Will, I'm really glad you talked about that. I have this pet name, I call them cycling alligators. So there's cycling alligators around the local place, which are bridges, which are areas which have like reduced sort of access to make it safer to cross the roads. But for cyclists, there can be traps where you get bullied. So safety and working with the council and the transport team is really important. It's basically what I do on the transformation side. But the other part that Jaspal does more is cycling together and being supported as a community. So our social movement is asking people, it's kind of tapping them on the shoulder saying, do you need support? Do you need help cycling? Would you like to cycle in the parks first? So we cycle in the parks first, get their confidence up. And that wraparound, a wraparound service is really important to get people to cycle in groups, get their training available, get them and give them a bike. That's the barrier. I mean, when we say give them a bike, we give a bike on a contract with a GPS tracker. So they have to use the bike regularly, otherwise we take it back. So sometimes getting over those barriers, but cycling in groups and making cycling safe, as Will said a couple of times, is really important to make that mode switch. So we have daily cycling here in Southall, and we want people to see other cyclists on the road. So it changes behavior. And if you look at Holland and other countries that cycle, those people have cycled from childhood. So when they start to drive, their behavior is they're already thinking like a cyclist. So we need to train bus drivers. We need to train the drivers of Southall to say, make that change, think of the cyclist. And it would help. Once you've got the momentum of people, I think it will start to change behaviour. So it's a really good question, and I'll stop there in the interest of time.
I just want to add on something Temi said earlier about the image of cycling. So to put that into context, we have ladies that will come in and pick a bike that is an old recycled children's bike, because that works for them. They can take the pedals off, they can go on that bike. So we're not bothered about image here. We're bothered about increasing that work that needs to be around confidence building. So when you see someone picking up an old bike and it's working and getting them there, I think we are really onto something about the image that is associated to cycling and how we create that mode shift.
Great, thank you both. We're going to have to wrap up now, unfortunately, and thank you for staying with us slightly over time. Just a very quick final reflection on me as listening into this session, but the key theme for me is absolutely inclusion, the way that you've gone about in creating inclusive environments. I've heard terms about accommodating people, understanding their needs. And if there was one call to action, I'd say to the people listening, and we need to keep working and supporting organisations like these, because these are the guys who are working with communities and really supporting them, really understanding what they need to be able to walk and cycle more. So thank you so much for listening into our session. That's it. I'm going to hand you back over to Jeanette. Thank you. Have a great day.